Again?
Can't do point for.
I don't know. She might walk in. I'll lose this time.
You're like hedging your bets.
Like last time.
Well, y'all ready? Good afternoon, everyone. Call to order our special meeting, City Council, for our budget. And we'll go straight to our presentations. Ma'am, staff report.
Thank you, Mayor McCaw and members of council. I am excited to present to you all at one time our fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget. I would like to start by thanking our budget team. Jennifer Delahaye and David Felix are the best, most knowledgeable, and most competent budget team any city could hope to have. So this was definitely a team effort, not just them, but as we've said many, many times in the past few months, and you're tired of hearing, this was a very difficult budget year. All the department heads, all the division managers buckled down and did the hard work, and together we are ready to present a balanced budget in its entirety to you. So I've mentioned to a couple of you what we're doing here today is we give you all of the individual pieces of the budget as it's coming together throughout the spring, starting in April. So this presentation is really taking all of those individual pieces that we presented to you over the past couple of months and putting it together into one presentation. So this is a very dynamic process, though, so you'll see that a lot of the things look the same, but a lot of the things have changed. So we're giving you what are almost the final numbers. As of this morning, we're still changing a couple of things. And any updates that have happened since all of your previous presentations. So we'll go through the changes first and then review again all of the individual components of the budget. So, number of changes to go through before we get into the rest of the budget. So, starting with the CCTEC is the Cochise County Tourism and Economic Council. The Cochise County itself decided to pull out of CCTEC. And in the beginning, we thought that would mean that the council itself would fold. However, so had pulled out all of those numbers from the budget. And then found out that all of the other members besides the city and the county elected to remain part of the Tourism and Economic Development Council. And so to do that, we needed to add the revenue from the member entities and then also the tourism memberships, which are further down the list, those go together. So we had to add those back in after that change was made. The reduced state shared urban revenue share revenue, that $100,000 decrease, I had mentioned that at the work session last week. The state did adopt full federal tax conformity. And so thankfully, we always budget very conservatively. I'll go over that in a little more detail in a couple slides, how we did that. But thankfully, we had already budgeted conservatively enough that after we learned that the state was likely to do that, we reduced our revenue projections by another $100,000. We added revenue for the golf course for electricity payments and their electricity expenditure. We negotiated an amendment with Paradigm where we averaged their electrical costs, and they will pay the city a flat $8,000 a month, and we will start paying the electric bill. We did a 1-to-1 offset on that. We don't know what the final numbers on the electricity will be. We have the historical numbers, but with the ESCO project that's coming up, that will start construction here soon on the solar portion and then complete construction throughout the rest of the fiscal year. We made it a wash so we can see what the electricity costs are after all that project is completed. We removed printers from capital. When we have some small projects like this, we look and see if there's something that could be fit out of the current year's budget. So those were two things that were easy to take care of. The PD Tahoe, we needed to adjust that up about $10,000. One HVAC unit at City Hall needed to be replaced more quickly than the other one, and so we did a rush replacement on one, and there's still one in the budget for next year for replacement. And then after all of that, in order to balance the budget, after we took the revenue down another $100,000, we were left with $46,400 we needed to find in order to balance. And so we decided to reduce the archery range driveway project. There is still some money in the budget to address a portion of that, and so we're considering it a phase. So we'll be able to do phase 1 next year, budget for phase 2 the year after. And so total general fund change, all of that adds up to about $96,000. In the airport, we realized we had not budgeted the revenue from the Vanquish Air lease, and so that went in and we reduced the carryover appropriately. There are 2 projects that we missed that will need to be carried over. One of them is the AWAS system, and that will be $390,930, and a new pump at the well, which is $7,000. So you'll see those changes, and we adjusted the totals on upcoming slides to reflect those being added to the budget. On the capital improvement fund, we reduced the golf course energy savings project by $500,000. The final numbers, thankfully, came back lower than we had budgeted. We budgeted high just in case. That was a result of not needing to replace the well on the front 9, and instead doing some adjustments and repairs and other parts, or changing some of the other parts of the project. And since we didn't have to replace the well, it reduced the entire project by $500,000.
Hey, Victoria, could you
Yes.
explain to me on the airport budget line, reduced carryover balance? What's that mean?
Jen, what did we have budgeted against the carryover that we needed to reduce the carryover?
You couldn't hear.
Mayor and members of council, since we had additional revenue from the Vanquish, that just reduced the fund balance that paid for the rest of the O&M.
So is that carryover revenue from previous years?
Yes,
So it's carryover revenue?
in the fund balance, yes.
Okay, got it, thank you.
All right, in the sewer fund, just an adjustment, the upcoming balance of the Riverstone project is no longer capital, and so that was moved to professional services, so just a swap there. In donations, we learned that there should be a final disbursement from the Betty Olson estate after everything is settled. Then there's a final disbursement, so that went in as a possible donation in a possible project. We don't have a named project yet, but we needed to budget for that money. And in the MPO, just a minor adjustment. They had $1,000 budgeted as a grant in capital, and something that costs $1,000 doesn't reach our threshold for capital, so it was just moved to specialized supplies. Yes.
Sorry, keep getting that.
Yeah, go
To the
ahead,
mayor
go ahead.
first. Professional services, are those typically when we third-party contract or some sort of third party?
Yes.
So throughout the budget document, it's about the same?
Yes. It's various, but like this, it's Sharon, we're hiring somebody to design the project itself. Is that?
Correct.
So yes, we're hiring a third party.
Okay.
And it's generally, you know, engineering, consulting services. So sometimes it could be legal services.
Okay.
As well.
Thanks.
Just a little more detail on how we adjusted our revenue numbers and how we typically adjust conservatively based on the numbers the league sends us. So the league gives us numbers in early spring, and we use those as a guide. And David and Jen are very good at making projections based on our actuals and the trends we have seen and how our revenue actually comes in from the state. I don't think, ever budget the full amount that the state projects for us. There's a lot of variables on how the money actually comes in, and so we typically estimate low to begin with. And so you can see where we were at for fiscal year 26, what the league projected with tax conformity, and where we ended up for our next fiscal year proposed amounts and what the variance was. So we ended up about $468,000 less in state shared revenue than last year. This is just a snapshot of the budget by major fund, some of the changes, and then we'll be going over a lot of this information in more detail through the rest of the presentation. But some of the significant changes, like in the LTAF fund, that is the $541,000 less figure than last year is really due to completed projects. Like we carried a number of the multi-use projects, the curb gutter and sidewalk projects. Those are done, and so they just moved off. So it's not truly a real reduction to that fund as far as like lost money. The CIF, we have a number of significant carryover projects in there, which is why it looks like there's a substantial increase. That is mainly Roadrunner Park and our upcoming ESCO project at the golf course. In the sewer and refuse funds, we have increases there for a couple of reasons. Recall that Council approved a rate increase last year for our sewer and refuse fund, and there's another rate increase going into effect this year. I also wanted to mention one other fee increase for next year. You'll be seeing that on your agenda next week, but the city has not instituted an additional fee for credit card usage until this year. We're proposing doing that because credit card fees, which is the fee for that the credit card company charges us for people using their credit cards to pay, and you see that pretty much everywhere you use a credit card now. But the amount that the city would need to pay out of taxpayer funds for next year was approaching $200,000. And so we felt that it was time to add that fee. Anybody can still avoid that fee, just we offer payment by check, by cash. You can do a automatic check from your bank. So there are options for residents to still pay and not get that fee or they have other options. But if they choose to use their credit card, we'll be assessing a fee, and you'll get all of that information next week with your agenda. Yes,
That's
Mr.
with the
Mayor.
debit card as well?
David?
Yes, because a lot of processors charge you whether it's a debit or a credit card.
Finally, part of the increase in the sewer fund is because of the solar project. I'll go over that more in the capital projects, but that is the $2 million solar project that's part of our EOP upgrade. And then that change in all other funds, recall we have 21 funds, so every other fund goes into that all other funds list. And so those are things like grants, donations, the MPO, CCOM, health and accident debt. So that's a long list of different funds. This is just a visual representation of how your budget is broken up in terms of personnel and O&M and capital and debt. So mostly capital, followed by personnel, then O&M, and debt actually makes up a very small percentage of your overall budget.
Can you break out the debt between principal and interest approximately?
I don't think we have that. We'll turn that over to our finance professional.
He has to make the payments.
That's actually in the debt section of the budget. It's page 88, 89, 90. We have the principal and interest for the lease purchases. Next year, we got about $463,000 of principal on lease purchases, $65,000 of interest. Bond payments total $3.1 million of principal and $725,000 of interest, and $4,000 of fees. trustee fees. And
Did you
this,
say it was, David?
it's on page 89 and 90. And this is the last year for the sewer bond payment. The sewer bonds pay off January 1 when we make that final payment.
Rolling into a new one though, right?
When we do the new plant, obviously for $30 million, that's not sitting in the checking account. We'll have to do a bond issue for the plant expansion and plant upgrades. So the debt service will be off until those bonds are issued and we move forward with that project.
All right, the big breakdown of revenue and summary on where all of your revenue comes from. Just a couple of the highlights and the major changes. The property tax increase is due to new construction. The change in licenses and permits is primarily due to decrease in our building permits. The change in local government payments, what goes into there is primarily our IGSA revenue. So like the Fort EMS contract, our washer and dryer maintenance, IGSA, those all go into local government payments. The state shared revenue is notable. Mainly, we have to drop fiscal year 24 off for space, but we have our state shared revenue has decreased $4 million by fiscal year 24. I know a lot of people have asked me, like, why is it such a tough budget year? And that's primarily the reason is that $4 million loss in just a couple of years. And that's primarily due to the change in income tax when the city or the state moved to the 2.5% flat income tax rate. The change in health and accident, that is due to our Health and Accident Fund was hit pretty hard by a couple of very large claims from retirees over the past year. And so the increased number reflects the increased contribution from the city. We're putting in approximately $645,000 more to keep our employees' rate increase down around 20%. And the way we calculated that is Chuck asked David to find the salary of our lowest paid full-time employee, calculate the 2% raise for the year, and then look at how much we could increase the health and accident premium or the health insurance premium and still give that person more money in their paycheck with their raise for the year. So that's why the employees only have a 20% raise and the city increased our contribution for the rest.
Victoria, I thought they did not, for the employee portion, they did not pay for health coverage.
Individuals do not, but they do for spouse, children, and family
Okay.
coverage.
So this is that's the portion you're talking about?
Yes. Ambulance fees, our revenue is increasing. That's due primarily to, number one, actuals trending up from increases in calls, and then the state applies an automatic rate increase of 1.8% starting July 1. Our GMC revenues, that's general maintenance centers, so that's public works, and our fuel sales, our labor costs. We have contracts with over 20 different governmental agencies where they bring us their mainly heavy equipment to work on, and we charge for that service. So that revenue is trending up. Airport revenues are down, good for the community and the region, not as good for our fund, but that's primarily due to fewer fires over the past year. And so a lot of our revenue there is from fuel. So we have fewer fuel sales with fewer fires, but our hangar revenue and our office revenue, our rental revenue is actually up in that fund. The sewer and refuse revenue increases, those are due to the rate increase from last year and this year. The Parks, Rec, and Library revenue increase is due to golf course revenue, community events revenue increasing, divisions like aquatics, and so trending on actuals. And Parks and Rec has been killing it in the revenue generation in the past year, so we expect that to continue. Investment income is down a little bit. That's because interest rates are starting to trend downward. In donations, that increase reflects that pending donation for animal control. The notes payable decreased is due to the fire truck received this year being removed. Carryover is mainly due to the number of projects that we have carrying over for next year. And then the increase in miscellaneous revenue is due to a couple of rebates we'll be receiving or anticipate receiving, like the $1 million rebate for the solar project coming up at the sewer plant, and then our stop loss rebates from those large claims I mentioned from a couple of retirees that will go to the Health and Accident Fund ultimately. Which will bring, we had to add the airport projects in, so Jen gave me the new number this morning. It will actually bring your fiscal year 27 total to $140,710,916.
On the airport revenue, probably for you, Sharon, do we actively pursue customers, for example, big customers like Forest Service, and is there a chance, do they ever switch airports for a lower cost or competitive reasons? Is that a thing for the firefighting?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'll answer from my perspective. Tony may have some input as well. In terms of, from Public Works perspective, yes, we actively pursue those relationships, make sure we're providing quality service. Do some occasionally switch airports? Yes, general aviation in particular will sometimes switch to Bisbee or Douglas or Benson. That's just an individual preference. Costs are lower for like a hangar rental at those airports, but the inventory is also older. So we believe our prices are in line with the service we provide.
Yeah, I read an article about that. I think it was the Forest Service shopping around for where they park. I wondered how that affected us. So is it from lower firefighting, or is it from, are we losing customers for some whatever reason?
Mr. Boone is probably better
Okay.
equipped to answer that. So.
Thanks, Tony.
For Mayor and Council, I guess the short answer to the question is both. If you look at the helicopters, they do the same thing that we do in the military, look at basing locations and where they respond. And then there is a cost perspective that they will continue to look at. But a lot of it will be driven based on the way the fires go. Because again, their turn rate, again, depending on, we're talking fixed wing or rotary wing, will drive that. So again, rotary wing has been really based, and again, it's the short legs in it that they're going to base it, which is why they're very interested in being at our airport.
Okay.
Fixed wing also has some additional constraints, specifically the length of the runway. Too short of a runway, and especially during the hotter summer temperatures, they cannot get lift on the planes. So our 12,000-foot main runway is definitely an asset for the Sierra Vista Airport because it's one of the longest runways out there, and so they can bring in the bigger planes and fuel, put slurry on them, and be able to take off.
Does the customer base ever exceed our capacity? Has that ever been a problem?
No.
Not so far.
Okay. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Sharon.
So overall, we have an 8.6% increase over last year, but the major fluctuation there is generally our grants and what grants we apply for each year. All right, our update on debt. We do finance certain capital projects depending on a variety of things, what type project, the overall project cost, the expected life. Recently, our expenditure limitation has become more of an issue, and so unfortunately, that sometimes means we have to finance projects when we could cash them out. And we work closely with David, who keeps a very close eye on our expenditure limitation and how that's going and whether we want to finance things or not in the upcoming year or previous year. The financing term generally matches the expected life of whatever we're financing. We don't finance things for longer than we expect to use them. And we typically have two types of debt: bonds for long-term items or lease purchase for short-term items like vehicles. So our debt service by fund, we will have a change in the general fund. We are actually not going to finance anything next year, so we will not be financing $387,000 for next year. The HERF financing is for the new sweeper that is arriving this year. They're unfortunately pretty expensive. The refuse debt that is completing this year, that was the last refuse truck. We will be buying a new refuse truck. So we will not have a payment for this year, though. That financing will hit the next fiscal year. In sewer, as David mentioned, that is the final payment on the sewer debt. That will happen in January. And then we are, as you know, rolling into a new EOP expansion project. So whenever we are ready to do that, you will see a new bond financing for that project. There's no debt in airport or the capital improvement fund, and then the debt service fund is the phase 1 and phase 2 Schneider Electric projects that were already completed. And this is our total amount of debt year to year, so we've been tracking pretty consistently, and overall we have a relatively low amount of debt for a city our size. Moving into operations and maintenance in all funds, just a quick point of clarification. We have 2 areas where we have multiple divisions under one department heading. So the city manager department actually comprises city manager's office, finance, communications, and economic development. Administrative services is HR, IT, procurement, and clerk's office. And then general government is our insurance. So that's liability insurance and our health and accident fund. You'll get a lot more detail in the next couple of slides, but the significant increase on the PD is mainly due to the ACO donation, the care team increase, and then budgeting for CCOM. Since everything moved back to the county last year, we had to budget our payment for the city's portion of CCOM differently this year.
Where does that show up in the budget, the change in the CCOM?
It's on a future slide, Mr. Kilmurray, but it goes into
It's not a future.
professional services under their ops division.
Can we back up one? I'm just going to point out the elephant in the room, that 30% increase for us in the money we've spent. So is that travel, Washington DC, the thing up in Scottsdale? Are those the big drivers of the increase in the mayor and city council?
It's an overall increase on travel and training based on actuals. Yes, that's the $20,000 increase for travel.
Budgeted for 27.
It was based on 26 actuals.
It's based on 26 actuals, Mr. Mayor.
So we spent 30% more this year than we had in previous years.
Correct.
Okay.
We spent more like 50% more.
Yeah.
Because that's lumped in with a bunch of other numbers, but it's the first time I saw a significant increase, and so I did ask them about it, and year to date we're at 36,000 already.
Is 36,000 a lot for this time of year, or a little? I mean, is that big or small
It's about 20,000 more than previous years.
by the
So-
at the end of the year?
Yes, sir. That's more.
All right, thanks.
Okay, we already covered the increase in city council, city manager, our office, our increase. We have to add strategic planning. You'll be updating your strategic plan next year, and so we have to budget for that consultant. In finance, under professional services, we are moving to a third-party ambulance billing company. We've previously had internal staff who have done that, and we've made the decision to move to a company that will handle our ambulance billing. That increase is offset by revenue, and then we were able to give up a budgeted position since we won't be doing that in-house anymore. And we reduced their travel and training by $10,000 just based on their actuals from previous years. City clerk, same situation. We have to budget for an election every other year. And the non-departmental fund, It's about $120,000 increase for our general liability insurance.
Things like the professional services for the city clerk, do we offset it, average it year over year over year, or do we get like a $45,000 spike during election years?
We typically have the same spike. I believe we have a contract with the county. It's a flat amount.
And we just pay them every other year, and that's just a
Yes.
spike in the budget? Thanks.
Next year it'll come out. Year after it goes right back in.
Okay. Actually,
A lot of change. Oh,
I'm sorry, Victoria, backing up. So back in history, is that 45,000 kind of one of the reasons that the city got rid of its primary election? Was that a driver at all?
Yes.
Cost savings?
Yeah.
You were here.
No, but I was there, so.
Oh, okay.
The conversation, that was one of the arguments, that they saved like 30 grand at the time.
Well, yeah, there, and Mayor McCaw, Councilmember Kilmurray, there's actually, two reasons for it. One was there was additional cost for elections to have the primary, and the other was a perception of the public in terms of how, somebody would be elected in the primary, because it is a little bit confusing in terms of number of votes. So we don't have that situation anymore. But there are issues, of course, with not having the primary as well. So
Did we used to pay for primary and a general election then?
Yeah.
yes,
You had to have a 50+1, and then if you didn't get,
Yeah.
if nobody got it, then you had to have a special election.
Which was a
And then-
general election, right?
I mean, voter turnout in Cochise County is low as it is, so can you imagine how low it'd be in the primary? Historically it was.
Right.
Maybe today will be different. I don't think so, but
When was that change made?
2017?
Thanks.
10 years,
Oh, yeah.
almost.
We typically have a lot of changes in IT. There are typically a lot of changes in IT services, unfortunately, and they all seem to trend up. In professional services, we added one new service. We have an AI platform that the city is subscribing to for employees, and then we had an increase to our GIS service. In office equipment maintenance, we have 3 different services through Axon now, so we just combine them all into one place. We use Axon for our body camera cloud storage, our fleet in-vehicle camera storage, and our drone footage storage. So we shifted it out of specialized supplies into office equipment maintenance. It's not truly an almost $200,000 increase. It's just a shifting and streamlining. Malwarebytes is a new service. So is the fire station alerting support and maintenance costs. That was grant funded by the county, and so they paid for a fire station alerting system for every fire station in the county, and they paid for a couple of years of maintenance. So that is over, and so we are taking on the cost now for that service agreement. Some things like the CitizenServe software and the NeoGov software at the bottom, they start off in another department's budget, and over time we shift them back to IT. So we're just moving the CitizenServe software and the NeoGov annual payments into IT's budget. We did have a substantial increase to our VMware software. Abe and I have had many conversations. Software costs, especially cybersecurity related software costs, are going up substantially everywhere. So unfortunately, $56,000 next year, just an increased cost for that.
Victoria,
Yes.
for the GIS increase, is that licensing? What increase for GIS?
I believe it's the license cost. Thanks, Abe. They changed their subscription model, so like Microsoft, to charge us more. Under specialized supplies, this fluctuates year to year just based on what we need. The laptops for PD, we need fewer new laptops next year than we did this current year, so the number just adjusts appropriately. A project like the radios for Parks and Rec, they were purchased last year. The project's done. We don't need to do it next year. And we've been aggressively replacing staff PCs. We got caught up in a situation several years ago where we just didn't have the funding to replace our employee PCs regularly. And then Office 10, I think it was Office 10, the licensing was ending, and so we had to do some more refreshes. So we are through that, and so there are fewer computers needed for next fiscal year. So that number is less.
Other than police cars, what other car vehicles do we have in car cameras?
Just the police vehicles.
Thanks.
So in the police department, again, in professional services under the ops division, the care team was funded by a 3-year grant, and that grant is over. And so the city and the county will be splitting that cost. And much of our contribution towards that, we're going to take that out of our the money we get from the marijuana funding. So that will reduce slightly an additional payment to PSPRS, but we've been making really good progress with our PSPRS additional funding, and so it was appropriate to shift that towards something else public safety related at this point. And then, again, we have to budget differently for a contribution for CCOM since we are no longer the fiscal agent. So I was just moving our contribution into PD's actual budget. We decreased a little bit in ACO and professional services, but then increased about half in specialized supplies. So they will no longer be using their inmate labor, and the porta pots went along with the inmate labor, but we're seeing an increase in supply costs. The increase in the fire department travel and training is to fund additional slots for paramedics. We have several retirements coming up, so it makes sense to pay for a couple additional staff to go through the paramedic certification starting next year. The professional services decrease in engineering, we had budgeted for external site plan reviews and ended up not using as much as we'd estimated. And we're in a pretty good place right now, and so we're scaling that budget back for next year. In fleet, unfortunately, we're seeing some significant increased costs. We have a contract with Napa. They actually run a small parts shop inside our fleet division, and so that saves us a lot of time and additional cost by not having to buy and stock the parts ourselves, have our mechanics waste time actually looking for parts. We have a dedicated person from Napa in our fleet building who our mechanics can just go and tell them, here's what I need, and they pull it off the shelf and charge us appropriately. And so it expedites things. We look at this every time a contract increase or a contract renewal comes up, and I ask our Public Works Division to run the numbers for us and procurement. They are also intrinsic to this to make sure that this is still a good deal for the city, and it continues to come back at a savings for the city by paying for this Napa service. Fuel, we are seeing increased costs just like everybody else, and the vehicle and equipment maintenance costs, our parts continue to go up, unfortunately.
When we provide services to other agencies for repair costs, do we charge retail or wholesale labor costs?
I believe we charge a markup on them as well. Yeah. Cost plus. Yeah. It's been a while since I've taken a look at that, but yeah, cost plus.
And then could you explain again the removable of the inmate, about the porta potties and the inmate labor and the relationship?
I'll ask Chief Heiser to
Absolutely.
cover that one.
Mayor and Council, for many years we've been using Department of Corrections inmate labor at the shelter, and then also while they're out there, we rent porta potties for them to use while they're working. Now over the years we've actually DOC has actually reduced the number of inmates that are allowed to work out there, and we kind of wanted to extinguish the program altogether and not use it and replace it with full-time and part-time staff, which we've been doing over the years. And so this is the year to actually extinguish having inmates working out there at the shelter.
Okay, thanks.
On facilities, we have several adjustments. Notably, water has increased significantly. That's two issues. The golf course water we have paid for, and we have two of our three water companies in the city increased their rates. So it's about $50,000 for water at the golf course and an additional $50,000 from water companies increasing rates. A couple of other building maintenance items, specialized supplies. Fort Huachuca, that's a parts increase for our washer and dryer maintenance contract that is entirely set off by revenue. Whatever we charge or whatever we have to buy for parts, they reimburse. So that's a 1-to-1 increase. A couple of other things, backflow costs, restriping PD, and an equipment maintenance, HVAC and pool repairs. In community development, that's an adjustment based on the year we're in for the Good Neighbor Alliance emergency shelter contract. So we had $98,000 budgeted for last year. Next year, the amount is $52,566. So we're just moving through the years of the contract. On Parks, Rec, and Library, we had a couple of projects completed, and then the reduced contractors in Child and Family Services. We simply didn't need as many contractors to teach classes, and so reduced that by $10,000. And this is just a visual of how your operations and maintenance budget is broken out. Your expenditure total will be $35,129,971. Majority of that's in Public Works, as usual. And then general government, followed by everyone else, which is or end up being a pretty small portion of the overall budget. Moving into personnel, there were very few new personnel requests approved for next year. Airport personnel were approved because they're a special revenue fund that is quite healthy. The amount of work at the airport is increasing substantially with additional tenants. It is taking up more and more of both our Public Works and Economic Development team's time, so it was time to add a new airport administrator. We had one in years past, but have not needed one for many years now, and now it's clear we need one again. The airport workers are fuelers, and we made the decision to move from mainly part-time fuelers to 2 full-time fuelers earlier this year. Even though we are having fewer fires overall, the fire season has expanded to year-round. We used to have our fire season mainly from March through July, and now it's year-round, and so having 2 full-time workers is more efficient and provides enough coverage than having multiple part-time workers.
Victoria, on those 2 part-time workers, so we used to have more flexibility with multiple part-time workers. So do we have like a surge capability if we need, one of these guys is on vacation or whatnot?
So this is actually 2 full-time workers in the budget, and we do still have seasonal part-time fuelers for our major increase. May and June are typically very busy, so we do have seasonal workers for the surge in work. So.
Okay, yeah, I understand, thanks.
We spoke a little bit earlier about 2 reorganizations that we have going on in HR. HR had 2 vacant positions, a senior HR analyst and a benefits coordinator. They exchanged those vacant positions to hire a data and operations manager. The data and operations manager's primary job is going to be revising and maintaining our class comp plan. We are very overdue on our class comp plan to redo it. They typically, you want to redo them about every 10 years. We're a little over that, but they're also very expensive and typically pretty disruptive to do. So it will save us money in the long run to do this internally. We won't have to go out for a consultant to redo our class comp plan. We'll be able to do it entirely in-house. Then the next major reorganization, oh, sorry, Vice Mayor.
How much would we typically spend on a consultant to do the class and comp?
150,000.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is a good way to go.
Is this a service that the, what are they called, group up in Phoenix that represents us, the league provides, or do we?
No, we would hire a third-party consultant
Okay.
to do a full class comp study. That's what we did in 2014.
Yeah, the league just the league every year. The league chooses a percentage of positions that they want to focus on, and they push that out for free. Not well, we pay to be part of the league, but
Yeah.
that comes with that. But they don't do the whole class comp, which this would do.
They do market salary. They do a market salary survey.
So they provide us data. But- Okay.
And then we have a significant reorganization between the city clerk's office, city manager's office, and economic development. Our assistant to the city manager, Jen Delahaye, will be taking on most of the duties of the city clerk also, and she will have a joint position. Our deputy clerk position will remain vacant, and those duties will mostly be split between our city manager and city clerk's department specialists, which is Miss Jessica and Rochella Westbrook. And then the administrative assistant position for economic development will also remain vacant and will be absorbed by those positions. In terms of reclassifications, this is in keeping with our current class comp plan. We send 1/3 of all positions out for market comparisons and benchmarking each year. Some of these are also evaluated at department request. A department can submit a form that we put out to HR each year and say, I think that this position is working over its capacity or needs a second look. We also found that some positions had been missed over the past few years, and so those were also put into the group for the market comparison and benchmarking this year. So we found the city clerk was a little low. So even though Jill is retiring, it wouldn't be fair to say, well, you don't deserve an increase to be paid fairly because you're retiring. So small increase for that. Yes, Ms. Jackson.
Question. You said some positions were actually missed. Which ones were they missed? Which
The
positions
CIO
missed?
position was missed for several years. In communications and marketing, and also in the PD, the management analyst job became kind of a catch-all for a number of positions, and so we've been working slowly over the past several years to take those out of, or take the positions that we had them listed at management analyst / public information officer. And so we uncoupled them from the management analyst job description and made it its own concrete job description, just like public information officer, and benchmarked it appropriately. So we did public information officer, and so that moved up, I think, 2 grades. Community development and fire and medical services, their admin secretaries are being reclassed to department specialists. And in IT, we had 1 senior systems administrator and then the CIO, who were well below their market. Continuing with transit, a department specialist, yes.
Sorry, could we back up? So the city clerk, I recall in previous briefing that we actually, let me start that question over. So it looks like we're rescoping the position. It's being shared, for example, what Jen's picking up as part of those duties. But at the same time, I recall that we reclassified that from a manager to an executive position. So we actually upgraded position, and then we're splitting it apart.
So we have two things going on here, Mr. Kilmurray, and thank you for noticing that. So Jill, in her position, her job as city clerk merited an upgrade, and for just her position. So we are actually budgeting for that, even though she's only going to be here for about a month. We have to budget for that. At the same time, with the combination of assistant to the city manager with city clerk, it's actually downgrading city clerk at the same time. So Jill's doing her full position. So she gets the reclass for 1 month. But when Jen takes over that position, since she is not doing the entire job of city clerk as Jill is doing, it actually goes back 1 grade.
Okay, so this is not a permanent reclass of the position then?
No, it's not.
Okay, all right, that was my confusion. Thanks.
Okay, and the PD animal control was below market, and so each of our officers, that's a total increase, not per person. So total increase across all of our animal control officers. We'll be moving police lieutenants from exempt to non-exempt. That is due to, there was a lawsuit out of Yuma, I believe, and the settlement of the lawsuit found that lieutenants should be in non-exempt classifications. So there's no real financial change, except they will be eligible for overtime, and so we will see a bump in overtime at the end of the year. And then CALIA administrator, that was another one that was combined in the management analyst job track, so we're just decoupling that from management analyst. It was already benchmarked appropriately, so there was no salary change with that one. In wastewater, we're creating a 4-tier job track for trainees, workers, operator 1s and 2s. Our employees, this came through a proposal from the employees to create more clear criteria on how to promote. And so this is the first one that our departments took a real close look at the best way to do this. And this is our first example. And so it creates the job track, and people will know, I need to get this certification, and then I automatically promote from a trainee to a worker. And when I've finished my grade 1, I go to a worker or an operator 1 or an operator 2. So it gives them a really clear track. And that's a total increase across all 4 positions, again, not per person. And then our wastewater tech also came back below market, and so that will be a small increase.
Question. The transit coordinator, that was one of the responses to the traffic study from a few months back, right? That we were adding that position. So
I
we're taking
don't-
one position, upgrading it.
Do with the study, Sharon, or?
I believe this is actually separate from the study. So basically, the transit coordinator position, they are the right-hand person to the administrator. So they're helping to put together the scheduling. They are the supervisor when the administrator is not present. So it was operating at a higher level than a department specialist.
Okay. Wasn't there a recommendation for another position from the traffic study? Am I remembering it wrong?
I'd have to go back and take another look. I know we were looking at potentially adding routes, which then would be, additional people to run those routes and extending the length of routes. I don't specifically require a position, but I'll take a look.
Okay, thanks.
Real quick question. For the, this awesome initiative by the employees, how long the process did that take?
We started talking about it last fiscal year, so I'd say it took about a year, but.
Okay.
And the time that goes into that is coming up with the job descriptions and then HR has to do a lot of work to benchmark them against other communities and making sure everything is all set.
Okay, thanks.
So the list of frozen and unfunded positions for next year, in total, all of these positions add up to $761,641. And this is really what helped us balance the budget for next year. So it was unfortunate, and we don't like to do this, but this is where we save the most money when you have a difficult budget year like we did for next year. Some of these, like the community service officer supervisor, that was a mistake. It was accidentally double budgeted. The intent was to promote somebody who was already in the job and promote them in place. And it was accidentally budgeted as an entirely separate position. So that position's not going away. It's just we only need to budget for the increase to an existing person's salary, not an entirely new salary.
So it's not gonna affect anything that's already in place for the CSOs, or the thought was, right, to have someone in charge of them, and so you can promote internally?
We have actually frozen that though, for operational reasons.
Okay, all right.
So when they are ready, they will be able to do that, but we did not need to budget for a separate position.
Okay.
The accounting specialist in finance, the ambulance billing again moved to contract, and we were able to pull that one out. And in community development, we had budgeted for 2, and that's part of the reason that the admin secretary in community development is being upgraded to a department specialist taking on that additional work. We always share our retirement contributions for next year, the public safety personnel retirement system for our public safety folks. The decrease for next year is due to the number of retirements we've had over the past year. And then again, we moved some of the marijuana funds out to fund the care team. The ASRS contribution, there's a very small decrease for employees for next year. ASRS adjusts that number based on the performance of their fund. So it's been really good. ASRS has actually done very, very well. And PSPRS is doing a lot better, but ASRS has done a small decrease the past couple of years. So that means the fund is doing very well.
So PSPRS is the only one we really have a deficit on, right? ARS, we don't. She just sit in the
It's
front
the only
row,
one
David.
that we're making additional contributions to. We don't make additional contributions to ASRS.
Both of them have a deficit. The fundamental difference is ASRS is one program for the whole state. Whether you're in Phoenix, Tempe, Sierra Vista, Flagstaff, Eloy, ASRS has one contribution rate for every employee and every city, and they tend to be equal. For PSPRS, every single entity has a separate, complete actuarial valuation, which is why our police department has a different valuation than our fire department and different liabilities. So they're tied a lot closer. And kind of the key differences on the unfunded liabilities are the benefits that were offered to the police and fire personnel back in between the 80s and when they did the Hall vote in the around 2010, 2012. It was a fundamentally flawed program for PSPRS on the benefits given, and that's how it got there. That's why they actually had to go to a vote to change the system. We have the different tiers of the system. So they're both unfunded, both have a loss, and we can't make an extra payment really to ASRS because it's the whole state employees combined.
Yeah, it's an entire, it's a common pool, right?
Yes.
So, and you would rate us as low risk even on PSPRS.
Yeah, we have made, council has agreed, we have made a lot of progress towards our PSPRS contribution or unfunded liability. Unfortunately, I mean, Victoria mentioned ASRS is good performance. ASRS typically outperforms PSPRS. The LGIP typically outperforms PSPRS, but the state has allowed PSPRS to stay separate in its investments as well. But with the budget stuff that we have done, we've been very fortunate to be able to overfund every year. And we did the study, we would be at 4 or 5% higher contribution, at least for each fund, if we had not made those extra contributions. We would be in a much worse shape than we are now.
Does the treasurer's office manage those two funds, or are they funded independently?
PSPRS has its own complete, they hire their own people, they do everything separately. When Ms. Yee was down here years ago, they said they would love to manage both funds, especially PSPRS. But PSPRS people do not want to let that go. They want to control the person and hire who they want to hire. So that is by the state legislature separate, and they're allowed to do hire their own separate investment company and completely run it separate than any other investments going on in the state.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, Mayor McCaw, members of the council, PSPRS is as you just heard, is an immensely complicated, issue for everybody in the state, and we have certainly done a good job in terms of making extra contributions and trying to get a better handle on our overall liability for that. A lot of cities, especially smaller ones, have had to take out actually pension bonds to help overcome their deficits. We have not had to do that, which is good, because if you're in a higher interest rate environment, then obviously you're going to face higher contribution levels. We're very fortunate to have David on staff. I believe that he is probably the leading expert on PSPRS finances in the state, and we're just blessed to have him here. Thank you.
This is how our personnel costs are broken down by fund. I have more information on the next slide on why there's such a significant increase in the general fund. That's not all raises. The 2% annual step increase across the board for next year is just over $500,000. A lot of that is the health insurance increase and CCOM, which you can see more here, that $817,000 increase to the health and accident fund is the main driver of that 1.2 million. And the other significant change in employee recognition, we didn't actually double that fund. We shifted primarily event funding. We had some events budgeted out of different departments, and we just moved them into there.
That employee recognition that covers just for like awards and events, things like that, not like spot bonuses, is not, that wouldn't be that same.
No, Mr. Rodriguez, that it's actually, so there's an amount budgeted per department each year for their Employee of the Year awards. So that's one thing. We have the STAR awards, which are like an on-the-spot $25, like, hey, you did something really amazing, and give you just some recognition. We've got two main events, our annual service awards luncheon that we just had last week, and then our Christmas luncheon are the two major events budgeted out of here. And then we have a small amount budgeted for retiree gifts. If you work a certain number of years with the city, you are eligible for a certain amount as a retirement gift.
Got it. The 2% step increase, do we have a lot of employees that are stepped at the point where they won't get that this year? Where we at with that? Because I know before we've had some people that are pretty senior, and they're kind of like, they're not eligible. How are we looking this year with that?
So typically we have fewer than 10 employees who are topped out.
Okay.
I don't know if Kenny happens to know off the top of her head how many are topped out this year. Thanks.
Okay, you said around 9?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Victoria, quick question. On that 2%, does that also include our first responders?
It's everybody.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
All right, moving into capital projects, there's not a lot of changes to these projects from what you saw in previous presentations. In our police department, we're replacing one Tahoe and one Explorer next year. Those were both totaled in accidents, I believe, so those are just replacements. The puppy room carryover project, that should be awarded in the next couple of weeks and finally underway. And then a lot of primarily grants that are all external funds. In the fire department, that fire truck will be in August. We're planning to finance that. The ambulance is one that we ordered and don't expect that in for several years yet, unfortunately.
And this comes from our spending limit, right? If we pay for it, we go over our spending limit for instance, the fire truck.
So the financing happens a year later. So what David will do as we get closer to the end of next fiscal year, so June of 27, is look at how our expenditures are ending up and see if it is okay to cash it out or if we need to finance it either due to budget or our expenditure limitation. And we would move forward in June of 2027 with our financing package.
Okay, thank you.
Victoria, quick question on the fire truck. Are we only in need of one? Is that correct?
Yes, we have one underway and it will be delivered in July.
And we just received the other.
And we just received the other one. So we don't have one that will be ordered. We're pretty much through our regular fire truck replacement for right now.
This new one that we're buying is an additional fire truck, correct? It's not replacing one?
It's replacing the PTE.
It is.
Yeah, taking the PT out of service.
That one's going out of service, or into reserves or out of service.
They should probably set it on fire.
Yeah.
I guess my next question, are they fully equipped now once we get this truck?
It's been parked more than anything.
Are they in need of another, or is this
This is the only one that's on the replacement plan.
okay?
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, and
I mean, yeah, it would.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, we
members of
just
council, I
talked
can
about
speak to that. So we were in desperate need of a single fire truck, which we already took in right now. We have it. But that truck is already in service and replaced a 25-year-old truck. The next truck that we ordered, which is coming in July, is replacing another aging truck, which is currently our frontline truck at Station 3. And so the unfortunate truth is, even though we have enough trucks, we have to have a truck or two in reserve at all times, because these trucks go down for maintenance, and there's a lot of issues oftentimes. And so it's important for us to have a usable truck in service in the backup status. The other side of that is if we have an all-call where all of our units are on calls and backup people come in and staff a truck, we need to have a backup truck in service and available. And so that's why this new truck is coming in, and it will go immediately into service.
Totally agreed, but I want to make sure that you guys have what you need. My question was, what else are you in need of? Is only one truck, or you need other trucks that need to be replaced?
I understand your question, yes. In fact, we will be fully staffed with our trucks, and everything will be good with trucks for now.
Oh.
Yeah, and we do have a very clear replacement list that we built out with fleet for future replacements of trucks.
Okay, awesome.
And I know.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
So the new trucks also mitigate some of the exhaust problems too, right? With the vehicles in the station.
I'm sorry, with the exhaust problems?
I don't remember what it's called, where you want to vent out the exhaust,
Def.
so it's not.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Def.
Yeah.
Two of our older trucks that were not DEF equipped, so those two trucks will be no longer in frontline service. And so, yeah, that does help for sure.
Okay. Thanks.
And then I know, it seems, I mean, it's hard to tell right now, but, and I know the PT spent a lot of time in the back of the bay, right? So, but it wasn't like our workhorse, but the loss of transports that will be not doing with that PT anymore since it's being taken offline versus having it online. We won't be able to track that to, I mean, I guess a year from now. I guess you could say, you know, since that truck's been offline, I don't know, you can kind of, I guess you could estimate since when it does producing, how many transports it did provide. In your opinion, what do you think is that going to be a big loss, or are we going to feel that?
Yeah, Councilman Rodriguez, what we'll need to do is assess whether or not we're going to need to place another ambulance in service at night. Currently, our Medic 2033, which is our peak hours BLS unit, it covers Code 1 transports, but it's only in service from 8 in the morning till 8 at night.
Right.
And at nighttime, there is no ambulance in that station. The PT does currently transport those patients. The PT is not the best unit for medical transports. It's quite cumbersome, and it doesn't allow for proper transport of all patients, to be honest. And so oftentimes, especially with critical patients, we have to call in an ambulance anyways. And so part of our future staffing model and requests will be to have a 24-hour medic unit at Station 3, especially with the loss of the PTE. So that will be something that we will need to address in the future.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I'm sorry, the PT is the big truck that has an ambulance slot in the middle
Yes,
of it, right?
Yeah, the PT is patient transport engine.
Okay.
Gotcha.
It's currently the only one in the state, and that's probably for good reason. It's a great concept in theory, but it's difficult in practical application at times.
Okay, thanks.
But it served us well. It's just it's to the point where it's challenging to transport patients, and it has had quite a few mechanical issues as well because it's not a commonly built engine, and so there are quite a few engineering design flaws that leave it prone to mechanical issues, especially with the lift to get the patient in and out of the gurney. So, but we make it when we put it to use, we use it, and it's great. It's just we believe that it's best served as an engine and not an ambulance.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Last question, sorry, I didn't want to let you go, Chief. So once you receive the fire truck and the ambulance, will you guys be fully equipped to do what you need to do?
We will.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
In IT, we've had an ongoing security camera installation projects at our fire stations. So Fire Station 3 is up for next year. We have a network switch upgrade for our entire city backbone infrastructure. The network equipment for the Rothery Center is a placeholder. That money will not be spent until and unless we actually have an agreement on the Rothery Center, which we do not currently. In facilities, we have a structural column to repair at the Cove. The animal control building needs a new fire pump. The library needed a more expensive UPS backup than we were able to afford last year, which is why this one is back on. And then City Hall, that one remaining HVAC unit for replacement. Community development will have the next phase of Henry Jones Park. That's funded out of CDBG money. And Fleet, a new tire changing machine.
Excellent.
Whole bunch of things under Parks, Rec, and Library. We have the resurfacing of the OICC pickleball courts, a new parking lot at the Veterans Park Sports Complex that will go on the southwest side, kind of in front of where the basketball courts are, and then wrap around to where the now former Parks Maintenance Yard was. If you've noticed, they've been cleaning it up on the north side of the skate court, and so that new parking lot is finished design and will go in there this year.
So just to clarify, so that anybody watching out there listening, this is not the dirt lot that is blocked off right now. This is the lot behind the skate park. That's where this money is going to go to that area, not to the dirt lot that's currently fenced.
Correct. We needed to block off that. All the drainage from Fry Boulevard flows down around Veterans Park and empties out right there where it's currently blocked off, which was a very convenient place to park, but not great during monsoon season. We had several cars get stuck, which the city was then responsible for the claims to repair their cars, and so that's why it is closed off and will not be reopening, but we will have the new parking lot constructed this year. Phase 1 of the archery range driveway is in here. We have an annual bleacher replacement program, so those are typically on each year.
Sorry, real quick.
Yes.
Since it was in the first slide, but the archery driveway. I know we had mentioned it before. So it's still going to be ADA compliant, even with the different less money being spent towards it. There's still a way to make sure that that's the case.
Yes, Mr. Rodriguez. I had a conversation with Ms. Adams about this and the ADA compliance. So would it be better to have fully paved ADA parking spaces? Yes, and that's probably what most of this money will go towards. But is it ADA compliant just with like compacted DG? Also yes. So the difference might mean that when it rains, DG would not drain as well as pavement. And so because that range is in a depression, it might collect some more water without the pavement. And so if we have like a heavy rainstorm, we might have to close the archery range, but then we might have to close it with heavy rain anyway, even if it was paved. So yes, we can maintain ADA compliance even without all of the paving that is currently planned.
Okay, thank you.
We have carryover for the Roadrunner Park design. It's currently at 60%, and we expect to complete the design by the end of the year. And then construction funds are budgeted $1.5 million for a match against a $1.5 million grant from the state. So we're working towards being under construction for phase 1 of Roadrunner Park late next year, meaning next fiscal year, so late spring, early summer. The Golf Course Energy Savings Project, that's the Schneider Electric project, and the $5.3 million, a portion of that we will get back from the rebate for the solar energy project. The clubhouse renovation, that is phase 1 of the shared concept from earlier in the year, so that would go towards construction of the range house and then some paint and carpet improvements in the existing clubhouse. The Domingo Paez restrooms have been on here for a little while, a couple of years now. We've been struggling with how to bring in either sewer or septic to that area. Unfortunately, the sewer run would have meant running a line underneath Highway 90, which would have been incredibly expensive. And so staff have been working to figure out how to do septic down there. We're finally ready to go. Those are going to be built this year. You will not see this one carry over next year, I promise. The Rothray long-term lease is also a placeholder. Again, we don't have an agreement with the school district, and so that money won't be spent until or unless we actually have an agreement with the school district, which you will be informed about and would have to approve any agreement. The Garden Canyon linear restrooms, those are also very close to construction. We'll be awarding that as part of our vertical construction contracts that are almost finished, so that one will be also completed here very soon. The future Ramada for Henry Jones Park, and then we've got several potential grants to finish out that list.
You probably know, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I was gonna say, was that the T-Mobile grant?
Yes.
Okay.
We should probably know this, the Garden Canyon Linear Park, that's the one off Cherokee, not St. Andrews, right? St. Andrews is covered but with Roadrunner Park.
The restroom would actually go in on the close to the St. Andrews
Front side,
parking lot.
By that paved
Or-
parking lot.
closer to the ditch. Yeah. The one that fills up with bullfrogs every year.
Yeah,
That's the linear part. And the Roadrunner's right behind it.
right next door to it, right?
Right
Yeah,
next door.
right next door.
Okay.
Just south of it, I guess.
So we don't have a bathroom there at the other one by Cherokee, right? Thanks.
Yeah, you know.
The porta potty there.
Or the tree.
In the tree.
2 carryover projects at the airport. The spaceport license will continue to carry over, and the 203-acre NEPA study and admin fees. We are working through with the Corps of Engineers and the FAA. Those are both very slow processes, so we expect that to continue to carry over. 3 FAA-funded projects, the main apron, pavement rehabilitation, and a new connector and pavement preservation on one of the runways. And then we continue to budget for a potential grant for the sewer and communication extension, and we are about to wrap up the design of those utility extensions in the next couple of months. And this is also where you'll see the addition I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. We need to add the AWAS system for $391,000 and the well pump for $7,000.
On the spaceport license, is that the cost it is taking for us to get our ducks in a row for the license, or are we being charged that amount by some entity in the government?
FAA.
So, Councilmember Kilmurray, it is the cost to acquire the third party, in this case, Launch on Demand. So we are going through safety analysis, environmental, to meet all of the gates that the FAA requires.
Okay, to meet their requirements, but they're
Correct.
not charging it, FAA is not charging us.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
In streets, we have 1.5 million budgeted for our neighborhood annual street maintenance. The Oakmont Shared Use Path, the Buffalo Soldier Trail Reconstruction Phase 1, that one is currently under design. That was an appropriation received 2 years ago. The second appropriation for BST was approved last year. We are not budgeting the match for that yet because we don't expect it to go into construction for another year or two. So it's not worth tying up that money if it's not going to go into construction for another year or so. Theater Drive, that one should be going out for bid soon. That one was entirely state funded through a state appropriation. And Julio Cesar Phase 1 will be going under construction next year. And then the emergency vehicle traffic signal equipment, that's a grant program through the MPO, which will be funding most of that. In our sewer fund, we have the solar facility. You're seeing that one now because of the rebates available, and the rebates expire by the end of the year. So by getting this one under construction quickly, we're eligible for a $1 million rebate. So we didn't want to leave $1 million on the table, and so this one is progressing before the rest of the plant upgrade. We're also hoping to apply through SSVEC for another $1 million grant, and so hopefully this project may be entirely paid for. We're not sure how the timing will work out with the grant through SSVEC. We may not end up being eligible for that, but we are going to try for it and may be able to completely offset that with the rebate and the grant. A couple of, we have a siphon inspection, and then EOP auto samplers. Those are some equipment replacements, and then a sewer truck, which will be financing most of that. In refuse, just a couple of dumpster replacements. Those are offset by the revenue to rent out the dumpsters, and then we will replace one refuse truck now that we are paying off the bond for the most recent new refuse truck. There's always a lot of projects under LTAF. A lot of them are carryovers because they are grant funded. All of our multi-use projects end up going under LTAF, primarily because the funding for them comes through the Federal Transit Administration. So, and they typically take several years to implement, which is why you will see a number of these projects carry over year to year to year. So we have, we regularly put in bus shelter enhancements in here. The BST pathway connectivity program, that one's about to wrap up here soon. The South Route 92 pathway, that is the one between 7th Street and Coronado. So that one will actually be under construction here soon. We have several software programs that we have to apply for the funding each year, so they have to go in the budget, but we have them year to year. You'll just see the funding listed in our capital projects each year. We will have 2 buses and a bus refurbishment for next year, a small amount for transit route planning. That is a next iteration of the master plan, so it's connected to that. And then the multi-use path between 90 and 7th and Coronado is listed there on the bottom. And then there are 3 new grants. The 3 projects at the bottom are grants that we are applying for this year. So we don't have a city cost there for the same reasons we didn't budget for the match for the appropriations. It will take several years for these projects to come to fruition. And so we don't want to tie up the funding for matches when it won't be used in the next year.
hold on one second. Hey, Carolyn, all of these projects are outlined in the MPO master plan, right? Most of them?
Yeah, like we don't have the shelters or any.
Yeah.
So that's not in it? That's not included, okay. Is it
Only
ju-
if it has
is
to
it
be
just the-
federalized, right?
Yeah.
Only if they're
Federalized.
regional or federalized projects.
So Mr. Mayor, members of council, the short answer is we do provide a complete list. Justin Hembry, the MPO administrator, works directly with our grants administrator, Michelle Landis, and she provides him a complete list. He picks out whatever he needs to pick out to include in the MPO budget
Yeah.
after council has approved the tentative budget.
Okay. Thanks.
Towards the end of the presentation here, we always like to cover several future issues that we're keeping an eye on and let you know of things that, issues that are coming up. Street maintenance will continue to be an issue. Costs aren't going down for anything. They continue to rise, especially with more costly fuel means more costly asphalt, which means our street construction projects tend to just keep going up in cost, and our budget is not getting bigger for street maintenance, so that will continue to be a concern. Maintaining our class comp plan. We had traditionally tried to budget at 100% of market salaries. We are continuing to slip more towards 95% of market. For many reasons, salaries, especially in the valley, tend to continue to trend upward. We do try to benchmark ourselves against like cities, which is primarily Oro Valley, Marana, Bullhead City, Casa Grande. So we try to stay very like to ourselves, but they are also all mostly in major metro areas. And so all of their salaries just keep going up, and there doesn't seem to be much of an end in sight to that. Public safety retirements and PSPRS will continue to prioritize additional payments to reduce our unfunded liability. Our impact on local revenue from state actions, you've heard us say, I don't know how many times this spring, just keeping an eye on what's going on in the state. Future attacks on our state shared revenue especially seem to continue to be increasing. So year to year, we run the risk of significant and unexpected revenue reductions. So we're always keeping a very close eye on that. And then again, just the general economy, we're all experiencing the rising cost of everything. I think everybody's pocketbooks are being hit with rising costs of, again, just about everything. So that affects us as a city as well, and so will continue to be a future concern. Your upcoming schedule, the tentative budget, it will be on your agenda for next week. That sets your tentative budget cap. The budget can still change between your tentative budget adoption and your final budget adoption, but it cannot exceed that cap that you set for the tentative budget adoption. Next, July 23rd, you'll have your
Say that last part, the whole thing again.
So the tentative budget sets your budget cap. The final budget can be a different number than your tentative budget, but it cannot exceed that cap that you set when you approve the tentative budget.
So we can't even vote to extend it?
I'm sorry, what was that?
We couldn't take a subsequent vote to increase it?
No. You can't increase it. Your final budget can be less than your tentative budget. I haven't seen that happen very often, but it could be less than that. We can change things within it, but your final budget number cannot exceed the cap you set with the tentative budget. And then August 13th will be your official tax levy adoption, and that will conclude your budget process for the year. So we are entering the home stretch here.
All right, thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of council. I want to thank Victoria and David and Jen, plus the departments again for all their work in trying to reach a balanced budget. I think the biggest takeaway from this is over the last 3 fiscal years, we've lost over $4 million of state shared revenue. If we had that money, things would be a lot different, more projects would get done, possible to do better in raises and those kind of things. But as long as the legislature continues to work on our revenues the way they are, that puts us in a tough position to balance. But again, every year we promise you that we will present you a balanced budget, and we try to do that without raising taxes, of course. And at least we were able to succeed in that endeavor this year.
Wow, 4 million?
Yep. You can see that would make a big difference if we had that $4 billion.
4 million since when, Chuck?
Fiscal year '24, so just 2 years ago.
Years ago? Wow,
They're killing us.
they're definitely killing us. Well, thank you for being conservative and looking at your crystal ball. Any other comments from the doc? Thank you so much. I don't think we need a meeting tomorrow. No meeting tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
4 million in 2 years.
Victoria, I do have one more kind of
Santana.
question.
They keep the cold of us really
The
good.
capital improvement plan,
Oh, okay.
did that get changed over to whatever we need? Are we gonna get another version of that?
It'll be updated for
There you go. Hey, Liz. I see you right. I see you write it down.